Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. PorscheCooled Podcast owner stories. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new, welcome to the podcast. My name is Michael Barth. This is Owner Stories. This episode is every Tuesday at the moment anyway. And it's me talking to owners around the world about their Porsche story. It's been a great series. I've been really enjoying it. You know, I've met so many nice people and had so many great conversations through Zoom. I do these owner stories through Zoom. I'm currently in Bahrain, so you know it's a good format. I enjoy doing it, and the stories are great. Today we've got Mark from the UK. I don't know a lot about Mark's story. He's coming on. I just saw that he's on Zoom now, so I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to connect with Zoom, and we'll start talking to Mark about his PorscheCooled owner story. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So this PorscheCooled owner stories, like I said, the number, you know I always forget, but the number is 21 owner stories. Today we have a good one, I think, because Mark is joining us today, and Mark's from the UK, and he's been a multiple Porsche owner, actually. He's owned a few. So it might be a bit longer today because we're going to get into each of the ones that he's owned and the one that he's still got today. And hear about his story. So Mark's here with me now. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Mark.
Oh, thanks, Michael. Yeah, it's good. I enjoy your podcast in my morning walks. So, I've been looking forward to chatting, and yeah, it's good.
Fantastic. Yeah. So just so the listeners know, Mark reached out to me by Instagram, and I always say Instagram is usually the best way to contact me because I'm on it every day. I'm on it every day on the PorscheCooled Instagram, you know, keeping it up, feeding Instagram so that they still like me. So I'm always looking at the messages at the same time. So if you want to be on the owner stories, you always the best ways to contact is through DM on Instagram usually. So, Mark, you know how this podcast starts, and we're talking about it then just off recording. The podcast always starts with, you know, everyone has a story to tell, and that's what, you know, PorscheCooled Owner Stories is about. Usually there's something in our childhood or something, you know, sometimes it happens when you're a kid, sometimes it happens when you're an adult. But when was the first time you thought, okay, I really like this brand Porsche, and one day I'm going to get one?
Well, Michael, I honestly don't remember a time when I didn't want a 911.
Okay.
It's all I ever wanted, really, and it was just trying to suss out a way to get one. My dad has always been a car fan, and I guess that stems from there, going to car shows as a kid, and that sort of thing. But you didn't really see sort of 911s on the streets where we lived, really, much in those days. You went into Manchester, you may see one or two side streets, that sort of thing. But my parents had a shop in a small town nearby where we live, and I remember vividly being in the shop one Saturday morning and just seeing this 911 drive by. Okay. And at the time, remembering what a great looking car it was, and the silhouette and everything, as we all say, really just loved the shape. Yeah. And the silhouette, and I'd seen it a couple of times after that. Thought what a great looking car it was. So obviously started then the bug, reading magazines from a really young age, to be honest, as I say, about 15. I left school at 16 and got my first job in a menswear store. And I remember basically I used to go to work on the bus, and there was a Porsche agent near a store that I used to work at one day a week. I used to do management relief one day a week. And there was a Porsche agent, Ian Anthony, in Bury near Manchester, and basically grab a sandwich at lunchtime and actually go up there and stare in the window really at the 80s Porsches. That would have been about 89, something like that. Then when I was about 18, again, a good few memories really, I suppose. But when I was 18, I worked on the markets with my father, and one of the guys on one of the stalls further up from us was telling me that he'd just got a 3.2 Carrera, which was about 3 years old at the time. Yeah, he'd promised himself one and got himself one. So I was begging him every week for weeks, what felt like weeks, to come bring it to the market. Anyway, one day, not thinking, I was busy with something else, and he just tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Come over and have a look at this," you know, and took me over to the car park, and there it was, stood on the grass, and I was just mesmerised. It was just what a fantastic looking thing.
So that was when you were 18?
Yeah.
So 18. So So you see this 80s Carrera. You're 18.
Yeah.
So how long did it take then before the dream turned into reality?
Well, the extension of that really was that day he took me for a spin in it, and he got out when we were partway along the road, and I thought, what's he doing? And he said, right, you drive. So I drove it back, and I was like, oh my God, this is just like, I've got to have one of these things. So that was it then. The goal was set, and I was determined I was going to get my first one by the time I was 25.
So Mark, the car was how many years old? This car that you
I reckon
drove?
about 3 at the time.
So it was almost it was almost a brand new car. Wow.
3.2 Carrera. Yeah. It was certainly no more than 5, but yeah.
Yeah. So that memory's pretty strong then.
Yeah, and just driving it was just, yeah. I mean, obviously, part nerves, part excitement, and just part, wow, this is just insane, you know. It just felt so fast as well at the time because, well, they were, I suppose, at the time.
So that was what year, that Carrera?
I'd say it was about 87, something like that, and we're talking 91, so it might have been about 4 years old. Yeah, 87, 88.
Okay, so that's very relevant then, if it's an 87, isn't it?
yeah, that's right. Well, of course, it was the first year of the G50 gearbox as well.
Yes, exactly.
3.2 Carreras, yeah. So,
all right, so you have that experience. You go for that. Well, not even a passenger seat drive. You actually get to drive it, which, you know, at that age, you must be going, wow, I've got to do something now to get one of these. So how many cars did you go through before you bought your first 911?
Oh, quite a few, yeah. I'd got various jobs, did a bit of travelling, various jobs, usual sort of run-of-the-mill cars. And then, well, basically, I joined the Porsche Club when I was 23 back in 96, which ironically I was just looking at it the other day, and it's 25 years ago this week. Wow. And I just read all the magazines and that sort of thing. It was a case of going into the local newsagent and getting the magazine every month. 911 and Porsche World, Porsche magazine for the Porsche UK, GB UK, and but went through many cars, but was so determined to have one from when I was 25. And what actually happened was that I'd started getting company cars when I was about 22, 23.
Okay.
So then the urgency was quite good because then it wasn't needing to be sort of an everyday transport commuter type car, you know, it was going to be.
That's almost the perfect situation, isn't it? To have the company car and then have your 911 as your other car, so to speak. So So you get to the point where you and this is going back, you bought your first 911 in 98, wasn't it? You said 98?
Yes. Yeah.
So in 1998, which is, you know, was 23 years ago, isn't it? 23 years ago. So you've been a Porsche owner for a long, long time. You've been in the brand for a long time. So what led you to the car that you bought in 98? Can you remember what you were looking for? And was that what you were looking for, or did you settle on something else?
Yeah, I think the combination of seeing the 3.2 Carrera from my father's shop and then going to my pal's 3.2 Carrera, it was very much a case of it's got to be a sort of 70s, 80s air-cooled and whatever I can afford, really. And that's what it turned out to be. Young and daft, buy the first one you see. Started looking through, I don't know if you're familiar with it, with this magazine here. It's online now, but Auto Trader. Yeah. Well, that used to come out every Thursday in a magazine format in those days. So you'd be looking through there to find out what was for sale and that.
Okay, so tell the listeners, let's get into it. Tell the listeners what the first one you bought. What was it? The year, the model, the color, etc.
Sure. I bought a 1978 911 3-litre SC Targa in, I think, what was described as light green metallic over a tan interior.
Nice combination.
It was a bit weird looking at the time because it came with what they call D90 wheels on it, which were common on the 944 and early 964s, I believe.
Yes.
So I soon swapped those out and put some black Fuchsias on it, as it should have had, and made quite a few alterations to it. The interior was not in great shape, so that got changed a little bit, like the door cards got remade and stuff. I'm unfortunately a bit of a stickler for originality. I like things to be as they were, if you can find out, you know.
So when you bought it, you took it, the door cards, etc. You bought it and you took it to a specialist interior guy and got them to redo it all, or you bought the parts separately and fitted them yourself. Are you hands-on, or you got people to do it for you?
No, I got people to do it, but I've basically sourced as a chap down on the south coast of England who does southbound motor trimmers, who basically has a lot of the leathers from the 70s and 80s air-cooled cars. He's got stockpiles of and he knows, he's got the knowledge of knowing what leathers for what cars and what years and that sort of thing.
So you returned it to its original condition. You didn't change the color of the interior. You kept it all original.
Yeah, the seats were in pretty good shape, so I just changed the door cards. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the early ones, not the early ones, but the 70s, 80s, again, air-cooled ones, they've got very big door pockets with the lid on. Yeah. And the weight of those, I think, because it was a Targa, it was probably leaking at some point down the back of the doors as well. And that was softening up the cardboard backed or whatever, the backing on the door cards. And it was causing problems.
So you said you bought the SC and you bought it from Auto Trader. You found it in Auto Trader?
Yeah, I bought it off a guy's drive, yeah.
So you literally just went and bought the first one. You saw it listed, was one of the first you saw, and you just went and purchased it.
Yeah, pretty much, Michael, yeah. I'm not so sure it's the way to go. When I listen to your podcast and people are talking about inspections and this sort of thing, but yeah.
But I think we're talking about 1998, right? And we're talking about the prices of, a 78 SC Targa. Obviously, are a lot less in 1998 than what they are now. So,
yeah.
Relatively
I can remember
speaking,
how much I paid for it. To be honest, I mean, I paid £10,900 for it, and which felt like a lot of money at the time.
Which, for some reason, still sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? It still seems like a reasonable chunk of money, even in 1998. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, I can't just remember all the things I did to it. I know I spent an awful lot of money on it. I had it 6 years. And I spent a lot of money on just maintaining it, really. Had some body work done as you do and that sort of thing. But yeah.
So, testing your memory, when you picked up the car, you took it home. Was there anything, did you go and get it checked out after that? Did you get a service done on it? Can you remember? Was there anything that came up that you had to fix straight away, or was it pretty much good to go?
It was pretty much good to drive, but again, I reiterate that at the time I sort of had a company car, so it was a case of put it in the drive and then play with it and see what comes up. Really, I have this vivid memory of driving it for the first or second or third time, just going out for blasts in it and things, and thinking, "This is fantastic," but I've got to be honest with myself, I can't see the car. I know it was always the shape that got me with them. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's the sound and everything else, but the shape is just so iconic. I know everybody says it, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's just, such a great looking car.
But the 78 SC Targas are pretty nice, though. They are very nice. You know what I mean? The shape, they're nice. They're a beautiful looking Targa. I have to say, I have got a really appreciation that's growing for the SC. I didn't realize, I don't think, how good the SC is in general, the 911 SC. And I think it probably started when I spoke to James at Porsche Platz, James who had the GT6 Cup car, the 996 GT3 Cup car, who was on a previous Owner Stories, and he said that he wanted to pick up another one, which I think he has. And then price-wise, SCs, even today, they seem to be still a little bit lower than some of the other 911s. You know what I mean? They're definitely lower than a G50, a G-Series G50 87, 88 model, that's for sure. So,
sure. Yeah, I think it probably comes down to possibly the gearbox. They do say with the 915 gearbox that the SC had that if it's a very well maintained gearbox, you can have a fantastic driving experience. You only have to have a slightly, I wouldn't even say shoddy, but a slightly out of sync gearbox, I believe, and it can cause problems. I mean, I used to have problems with mine. I've got to be honest, that was one of the big problems I had with it, where you'd be in fifth and you're coming down a slip road coming off a motorway, and you're going down to fourth to third to second and slowing down for a roundabout, and you throw it out of fifth and it just throw itself into the middle, on a big spring action sort of thing. But
oh, really?
I wasn't that knowledgeable as to why that would be at the time or whatever. But I believe, having read years gone by, I think if you've got a well sorted one, they seem to be,
So that's the common issue with the SC then, is it? The gearbox is the common weak point. Let's call it a weak point.
A lot of people swear by it as well, and much prefer it to the G50. So yeah, I don't know. I think it comes down to personal taste, and I think it comes down to experience and whether you've had a well sorted one experience or not, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had that car. You owned that car for how many years, Mark?
6 years.
6 years. So quite a long time. So it must have been pretty good for 6 years.
Yeah, again, it was a car I'd always wanted. Took it to plenty of shows and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, I lost my job. And lost my job at the time. The company that I worked for at the time felt 100% safe, and it wasn't. And yeah, lost my job and was like bills to pay. We'd bought our first house, so unfortunately had to sell it, which was painful 2 ways really. One, working out how much I'd actually spent on the car and how little I got for it.
Oh, right.
But yeah, just at the time, a point in time, I had to move on.
So it wasn't, you didn't sell the car because you didn't like the car or you fell out of love with the car. You basically had to sell it due to financial, personal type reasons.
Yeah,
so that was the only reason.
Circumstances really. Yeah.
So you owned that car for 6 years. You bought it in was it 98? So 2004. 2004, you're Porscheless. You sell it. It's gone. How long does it take you before you get your next Porsche?
Well, it was very much a case of, right, we're not having another one, blah, blah, blah. Because of how much we had actually spent on it. And when I sold it, I swore to myself, sorry,
Mark, just to interrupt. How do you want to share that? How much you actually, the SC Targa, do you have a rough idea in your figure of what you spent during the 6 periods on maintenance, maintenance more so, not petrol and insurance and stuff, but basically maintenance?
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, and I try not to think about it, and when I do rave about how well I've done with the 3.2 Carrera, I get told at home that, well, that's to offset what we lost on the last one. But it's I think off the top of my head, including buying it, which was, as I say, just short of 11,000, I think I was into it for about 22,000.
Okay, so you spent double the amount. So you spent another double the amount.
But the painful bit was what I got for it. I got 7,000 for it. So yeah, at the time. So.
Well, to make you not feel so bad, and I think Steve's probably going to get annoyed with me if I share this, but I think he shared it on a podcast before, so I'm going to share it. But when he had his 993 Carrera, and I won't mention the amounts because he gets a bit funny about it, but the amount he paid for his 993 Carrera, he put in the same amount of things when he sold it, when he added up all these receipts.
Sure.
I think. If Steve's listening, Steve, I know you're listening, but I hope you don't mind me saying this. But I think he literally put in the same amount. And that was just, he'd done a few mods and leather things and whatever, but he basically, the cost of the car, when he sold it, he added up all his receipts, and it was literally almost the same as the cost of the car.
Cost of the car. Yeah.
So I think it could be a common thread there, Mark. It could be a common thread. You're not the only one. I think it depends
what you're doing it for as well, doesn't it? I mean, there's possibly quite a lot of people that do buy them to try and have the car they want and profiteer. I bought the car that I wanted, had it for a good period of time, and thoroughly enjoyed it, I've got to be honest. So
yeah, the thing is the maintenance costs on that, really. I mean, if you bought a new car, the depreciation, that side of it, you're going to lose more money if you bought a new car. So, it's...
Sure.
Porsche's still, I still, they're still let's call them an appreciating asset. Appreciating as in, you don't really lose money because the enjoyment you get out of it. Sure, you got to pay for maintenance, but you got to pay for maintenance for any car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And I always think, even my Audi that I used to own, I keep saying it, but it used to cost me more to maintain that car than it does the 911. So that's just crazy.
So reliable, aren't they?
Yeah. So so you're Porscheless, and then we're getting into this. You start thinking, okay, your wife says that no, you're not having another one. She's got a good sense of humor because you've already lost on one. So what happens? How do you get into your second 911?
Well, when I sold the first one, I swore by the time I was 40, I was having another one. So that's, I guess, a good way away. But so it was 8 years at that time. Anyway, at 39, I go down somebody's driveway and buy another one, which is the one I've got today, which is a 1987 3.2 Carrera Coupe in Cassis Red, which is... yeah, an interesting colour. I love it to bits.
Which I'm very, very envious of because that's up there with my top colours in that model year, that generation. I think it's a fantastic color. And yours is a little bit more unique because of the wheels as well, which I haven't seen that often. I think I have seen it before, but not so often. So tell the listeners exactly what the car, if you remember, what the car came optioned with, and talk about the wheels as well, Mark.
Sure. It came with what they call the Sport Pack, which gave you the front valance spoiler and the sort of chin spoiler and the rear whale tail. The colour option wheels, as you say, were an extra, I believe, factory extra. You often see them on white Carreras of that vintage as well, but it tends to be black centres. And the sports seats, sports electric seats, seem to be the extras on it. I've not actually got any paperwork to sort of show that, but I recently, I don't know if you've seen it, but I did Roger Bailey on YouTube did a video on my car that came out last week.
Oh no, I haven't seen it.
All right, we looked into that with the factory option wheels because we're questioning, because apparently it was a relatively new thing on the 80s on the 3.2 Carreras that you could option the colour wheels from factory. But,
so you're thinking it did come from factory with those wheels? It was part of the option list, but you don't know what the option list is for your car, or you can't locate it?
No. I'm pretty sure it's fairly as was ordered.
Yeah. So let me tell the listeners what your Instagram is, because then they can have a look at it, and it's always good for them to look at it while we're chatting. And it's Dempsey8617. So DEMPSEY8617. The link for that Instagram will be in the podcast description as well. But if you're listening now, check out Mark's Instagram, and there's images on there of his 911. Yeah, go on, Mark. So the other options, I mean, I wouldn't think I would like the wheels, but I actually do like the wheels. And I think I've seen these coloured wheels on a special edition. Is there a special edition G Series that has the coloured wheels? I think I saw it on Bring a Trailer. There was one for sale. Sure.
That was people get my car confused with that because I think it's a grey colour off memory, but it does shine different colours in different lights. So sometimes you get like a light green, or you might get a pinky Cassis colour. But it's that does have coloured wheels, and you often saw them on white ones as well.
Yeah, the white ones. The white ones that Steve hates. He hates the white ones.
Okay, right.
I think the anniversary one, though, that special edition one, it has piping on the seats, doesn't it? I'm looking at your seats; they don't have piping, but I think it has piping on the seats, the centre console.
That was possibly an optional extra, I think, at the time as well, because you do see quite a number of cars. If you take something like one that stands out, the Baltic Blue, which has got the linen leather, which mine has, which is the cream leather effectively, and then it comes with the body-coloured piping as well. Often you got that on 944s, I think, as well, on 928s.
It's weird, isn't it? You know, if I was speccing a car today, and I'm not, this is no offense to you, but if I was speccing a car today, I would not spec it in the color of your car. But if I was looking for a G Series and this one came up, I wouldn't say no to it because I really like the color. In fact, the linen leather with is that burgundy leather inside the dashboard? Is it burgundy or red or
what? Yeah, it's burgundy dashboard, burgundy door tops, and a burgundy ceiling. And a friend of mine who I met through the car, actually, I turned up one day at a car show not long after I'd bought it, and he was in exactly the same car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we've become friends ever since. And he's sold his now, but his had a burgundy carpet setting, where mine's got a cream carpet setting. So you do see him a few different ways around. And the other guy, Matt Farrah's got one in this colour as well.
Is his Cassis, is it?
Tire. Yeah, and I think he's made it into Safari now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's made it into Safari, but it's weird. He has actually. It is Cassis Red. It's weird how his colour, and maybe it's just a light in LA compared to the light in Manchester, but his colour looks different, doesn't it? It looks slightly darker almost. Yours is original paint, Mark?
Yes. Well, no, I've had it repainted.
Oh, you've had it repainted,
rebuilt, actually. Yeah.
The other famous Cassis Red one that I always used to see on Instagram, and I don't know if she posts anymore, was that she did I think a film for Porsche, one of the promotion films like That Porsche Girl. Turbo Kyoko, I think her name is. And she has an Instagram site, and she has a Cassis Red one in the US. But I think it's got black Fuchs wheels, so it doesn't have the color coded. So this car, it was nearby where you lived at the time, so it was a local car?
No, it was I bought it about 100, 120 miles away in Lincolnshire. And I bought it out of the Auto Trader. Went down someone's drive, had a look at it, had a number of stone chips on it, had some rust on it. But I just had this vivid memory that I'd always wanted linen interior. I just thought that was stand out for me from that period. I'd always wanted unusual colours. I'm always attracted to originality, I suppose, but I'm always attracted to colours of the period as well, you know. And at the time, a lot of them were sort of black, wet, guards red or white, and I was very much determined that I wanted something a bit different. And I think in the back of my mind, where I mentioned about the car that went past my parents' store, actually was this Cassis Red. And I've often wondered if it's actually that car, because I was once told that there was only 40 odd, somebody quoted 47 in the country in that colour. It was more common in 928s, the Cassis Red, I believe.
Yeah, because there's also a special edition in a 944 Turbo. Don't they do the Cassis Red there's a limited edition 944 Turbo. Is that Cassis Red or is that a different color?
It is.
Yeah, there's one for sale in Australia at the moment. I remember Magnus Walker said on something I was watching that he was doing live that he was looking for one. And it's the anniversary one. I think it was Cassis Red. But going back to the color, like you said, there was how many? There was about 40 odd, did you say?
Oh, yeah, but I've done some research as best you can through Facebook and Instagram and that sort of thing, and I can only find 5, including mine, in the UK. Now, obviously there'll be a number of cars that people don't put on Facebook and that sort of thing, but I did the Silverstone track day where we got 1,200 plus Porsches there, and there was one there. Obviously, I know of the other ones, but yeah, very limited. Hopefully, out the back of this, we may find some more. But yeah.
Yeah. So anyone that's listening in the UK that has a Cassis Red 87-ish Carrera 3.2, let me know, or contact Mark on his Instagram and let him know. I guess at the time, though, I'm wondering how it was in 87, whether this color was a popular color. You know, I always think about these colors because they're very period colors, aren't they? And I wonder if they were a popular color or it was just they were just pumping out the red, because obviously Guards Red, there's nothing wrong with Guards Red. If I was looking for, a model like a car like yours, that 3.2 Carrera G50, I wouldn't want a Guards Red one. In saying that, Paul, that's been on Owner's Stories before from New Zealand, his 3.2 Carrera looked beautiful. Had the piping on the seats and everything when he showed me. So that was a really nice looking car. I like how it's a rare color. I really do like how it's a rare color, Mark. I just want to go back to the buying process, and I know it's a long time ago because you bought it, in 2000 and what was it? 2012. So it's only 8 years ago. It's not that long ago. So did you do any checks on the car or not? Because everyone who listens to the podcast likes to know, especially when you're buying an air-cooled. And you're just an air-cooled owner. You haven't owned any water-cooled. The next car is not a water-cooled either, is it? No.
Well, it's not a 911. Yeah, the next one.
Yeah, it's not a 911. Yeah, exactly. How did you go about it?
In answer to your question, yeah, I saw it advertised and I rang up and made some inquiries about it. And as I say, it was about 120 miles journey each way to go and have a look at it. But I thought it was worth the effort. I went to have a look at it, and on my way, I rang a chap that I know who specialises in doing valuations and pre-purchase inspections, that sort of thing. And again, different era, Michael, I guess. But I said to him, would you come and have a look? So he said to me, he said, well, and he's sort of huffing and puffing and that sort of thing. And I said to him, he said, well, what are you looking to pay for it? And now I'm happy to share it, Michael, if it's not a... Yeah,
it's up to you, Mark, if you want to share it.
I paid... Well, he said, what you're looking to pay for it? And it was advertised at 10,000. And I said, well, probably anywhere between 8,000 and 9,000, something like that, as cheap as I can get it. But he said, oh, you don't need an inspection, save your money. So what do you mean? He said, well, the gearbox is worth this. The engine's worth that. The wheels are worth this. The glass is worth that. The interior is worth
you can just pull it apart.
And by the time you'd think, to be honest, if I'd have brought it home and it had failed, I could have broke it for more than I paid for it. So.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, a different era, wasn't it?
Yeah, just pull it apart.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I'd always wanted this 3.2 Carrera in a coupe format with a linen interior, with an unusual colour. So it ticked an awful lot of boxes for me. And I've got to be honest, and it sounds a bit slushy, but sat here now, I still pinch myself and I still actually think how lucky I was to be able to get in at the right time. And I'm not saying that to rub salt in the wound for anybody that wanted an Echo, but I just wonder how I'd have felt now, knowing that I could never afford one, because I really look at the prices now and I just think, wow, you know.
Refresh me, because I'm not 100% up on the prices of 3.2 Carreras. What is the range in the UK now of a 3.2 Carrera G50?
Yeah, probably anywhere between 40 and 50 sterling.
40, 50, yeah. So a good investment.
Yeah.
So you'd be getting pats on the back for that, shouldn't you, from your wife?
Well, I don't know.
Now you've made that much profit.
How much I've spent on it.
Okay, so let's
it's a long term.
Let's get into that. So you go and pick it up. You didn't do any inspection. You just picked it up. You take it home. You've had a Porsche before. You know the quirks of the SC, a 78 SC. You're in a 87 now, so it's 10 years new. It's newer technology, sort of. Were there any surprises when you picked it up, when you first started driving it? Can you remember? Were there any surprises or anything major that you had to fix?
No, not really. No, mechanically it seemed pretty sound for what I knew. I mean, I'm not a maintenance type guy, you know. I would farm out sort of thing to other people, but no, it drove pretty well. It stopped pretty well. And I suppose I was keen and prepared to take a chance anyway. As I say, it had a lot of stone chips on it, on the mirrors, the bonnet, the wings, front bumper, some cracking on the fog lights. And
so it had been driven very well then. It had been driven a lot.
Yeah, it had a strange history because, again, when you watch the video, it actually homes in on the YouTube video. It homes in on the dial on the speedo, and it got about 19,000 on it. So it got swapped out. At the last history I've got for the old speedo was about 168, and then I bought it with 2,000 on. 2,000 and a bit.
Okay.
So he's probably done about 170,000 at this stage.
170,000 miles. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I've done about 17 in it now, I think, in the last sort of 8 years. But it's, it wasn't too bad. It was rusting where they rust. They all rust under the arches aren't lined. So what you tend to find is that the water collects and the dirt collects under the headlights at the front, bottom of the wings, near the fuel filler cap, all that sort of thing. But so what I did was I actually had it tidied up locally. Shut your ears, everybody now. I had a bit of filler put in there. It was very much a temporary job just to get to a stage where it was usable, and I knew obviously further down the line that it would need rebuilding at some point, because it was, it needed doing, I suppose, but it was sort of a put me on job to use and enjoy, really. I'm not massively precious about it. I like to keep it clean, but I drive it as well, So.
You drive it well, yeah. So let's just go through that, because the listeners always like to hear what people have done to their 911. So what sort of things have you done to it during this 8 year, almost coming on 9 years of ownership? What have you added anything? What was the maintenance that you've done? Have you resprayed anything?
Yeah, quite a bit. It first went in for check over to see mechanically what the situation was, and we transpired that it had thrown a stud or snapped a stud in the top of the engine. yeah. And so engine and gearbox out, and it was very much a case of, well, there's no point changing one stud, you may as well change them all. So all got changed while the engine was out. Clutch got checked, and that seemed fine. So all got put back together, and a few grand later reused, and runs well mechanically. Other than that, really, it's been general maintenance on the mechanical side. Not too bad at all, really. As I say, in the early days, I had a tidying up job done locally, just by a local paint sprayer, just to tidy it up. And then in 2017, I went to town on it and had it all and I must put some pictures. There's one picture I think on Instagram that I put on recently where it was in bits. But I
was going to ask you about that photo actually.
Yeah, well, that was when they were putting it back together.
Yeah, you said, can't believe it's nearly 4 years since it's done. I'm looking at it thinking, what happened? But it was just a respray, was it? That was why it was in bits.
Well, yeah, amongst other things. But it transpired that the fuel tank wasn't very clever. So we got a new fuel tank, 2 new front wings. And I was trying to put as much new metal into it as I could, really. So that, just to eliminate some of this chasing the rot.
Okay. So the new metal, where do you get that from? Is that OEM, Porsche? Or is it or
Dansk? There's a brand called Dansk. When they can't get, in the end, I'm not sure what we used because there were some Porsche front wings and then there weren't. So we ended up either using Dansk or Porsche. But you tend to find that they're very similar products anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if it was Dansk actually because they make good parts, don't they?
Yeah, and it was only really the 2 new front wings that we needed. The fuel tank. After that, it needed about half a sill on one side, 3/4 of a sill on the other. It was quite a painful process to watch. I used to go down every Saturday morning and
Mark, I'm telling you, if that was my car, I would not go down there because I can't even bear to go in. If I go into Autohouse Hamilton, the door panel's off and I see it all pulled apart. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to. I actually have one of these people. I don't want to see my car in bits. You know what I mean? I know some people get enjoyment out of it, pulling it apart and putting it back together. But I think what you said about the fuel tank is a good thing, right? You replaced it with a new fuel tank, yeah?
Yeah, new fuel tank. As I say.
You need to do that with most classic cars. I know me looking at the 912 and that, I know most of them have had fuel tanks replaced. If they haven't, you probably need to do it because they get a bit, pretty awful after 50 years on that sort of car. It's not a cheap changeover though, is it? A fuel tank. It's quite expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the breakdown price, to be honest, because it was all sort of done as one package really. But we did the B posts as well, where the door shuts are. That was all new metal. As I say, half the sill on one side, 3/4 of the sill on the other. They basically cut it out until they got to solid metal, and then pieced it in.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you're familiar on that model. They have what they call the kidney bowls, which sit just behind the seats, if you like, and between the seats and the back wheels. So they were replaced, and that was actually what forced the issue because it was very close to really needing doing. It was going to get to the stage where it was going to be undrivable if it wasn't done. So that's forced the issue, and I went to town on it, as I say. So it went in, as you say, that was January 4 years ago as I was shipping it away, and it got it back at the April 2017, and it just felt $1 million. It was just like, oh, look at this.
How did you find the right person to do that? Because it's obviously a nervous process. Did you talk to friends?
Yeah.
Did you go online? How did you have the confidence in picking the place to do these repairs?
Shopped around quite a lot, and I think that's possibly, along with losing my job, that's probably what put me off keeping the original one, because you kind of talk to these guys who obviously do proper job and that sort of thing, and there's many price quotes that you get ranging from, a 10 grand to a 25 grand, and unfortunately with this type of car, until you actually get them in bits, the bit that you obviously don't like, and you get them on the floor and they're in a pile of dust, and you can't drive them away, that's when you find out how much it's going to cost. And I happened to be at a show, a local Porsche show in Leeds, and got talking to some guys who were actually doing restoration, and they gave me a quote which I thought was perfectly reasonable, and we worked a deal out, and the rest is history really. They've maintained the car ever since as well, mechanically, and it's really pleased with the job, to be honest.
Okay, so you paid 8 years ago, you paid £10,000, right, for the car, roundabout?
Yeah.
So you paid £10,000, and you don't have to tell me how much, but now they sell for about 50,000 quid, £50,000 for a reasonable condition, correct? And I'm guessing they go higher than that. So it's probably like the median is around £50,000.
Yeah, 40 some maybe.
40 to 50. Have you put in more than that since you've owned the car? Have you gone past that threshold?
I would say including buying it, and again, I'm happy to share it. I think including buying it, I'm into it for about 28. So, So, as I say, I reiterate.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good, though.
Yeah, and as I said, I feel fortunate to have been able to buy one at the time when I did, because, as I say, trying to find £50,000 for one now, it's a lot of money, isn't it?
It is. It's a pity you had to sell that Targa, though. I understand the reasoning, but it's a pity because it is a really nice color. I'm looking at your Instagram, as you can see. It's a really nice green.
I have actually looked for it, and it's in the UK. You can go on DVLA and see on a registration check to see, and it's not been MOT'd or road taxed since 2008, I think. So the chances are it's probably dust somewhere now, unfortunately. Been parted out or hopefully waiting a restoration.
Since we're talking about your car, let's talk about this video, this Roger Bailey video that you put on. I'm just looking at it on your YouTube. How did that come about? How did that video come about?
A friend of mine's got a 964 and he's done had a full restoration done in it, and he's modded it quite heavily. It's a fantastic looking car. And Roger does it as his hobby, and predominantly Porsches. And I just complimented him. He launched the video on Justin's 964, the grey one. And I just complimented him on a message, just said, look, how great the video was, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, Roger might be interested in doing your 3.2 Carrera, because he's not done many air cools. And he'd done an SC, I think, a yellow SC on there as well at one point. And I sort of said, well, if you think it's good enough condition, then yeah, why not?
It's a great video. It's something great to have, though, isn't it? So what's the channel on YouTube? Fantastic. What's the channel on YouTube called?
Just Roger Bailey.
Just Roger Bailey on YouTube. Yeah. So the listeners can just go to Roger Bailey on YouTube, and they can see your car in action. And it is on Instagram as well. If you're looking at Mark's Instagram, you can see it. It's a little bit down. It's only about a week ago, I think it was posted, but it looks great. Your car's fantastic. You know, that combination of interior with the exterior just works so well. It really does work so well.
Yeah, it's so Marmite, though. I mean, I quite find it quite entertaining, because I quite like going to car shows anyway. And what I'll tend to do is I'll park it up, and then I'll stand about 2 cars away from it. And the reactions is great. You know, I'd love one of them. That's the car that I always wanted, but not in that colour, you know. And it's amazing, because the women absolutely love it.
But it's also one of the...
Love it. It's just such a...
Girls love it, yeah. It's also one of those colours where it's like, you know, I would never buy that color, but in that car, I would take that color. You know what I mean? It's also that, I think it must be that reaction as well, because it kind of, you know, it is very, you know, it's so 80s though. It's such a great color.
Yeah, it's,
All right. So the 3.2 Carrera, the 87, is a car you still own. You still have it.
Sure.
In between that period, what was it, about a few years later, 5 years later or 4 years later, you started looking for another Porsche? You bought another Porsche?
Yeah. In 2017, I don't know why, but I'd always fancied a 924. And I think, really, if I'm honest with myself, I probably fancied a 924 or a 944 before the 911, just to get a Porsche, because they were so much cheaper.
Yeah.
But I was so determined to get a 911 that I didn't want to spend any money buying another one in the early days. So sort of reliving the thing. And I'd asked a friend who does valuations, whether he'd have a look at, we were having lunch at a car show, and I'd asked a friend if he'd have a look at this particular car on the field. And he said to me, I can go one better than that. He said, a family friend is looking to sell their car, and I'm in charge of selling it. They're elderly, they're in their 70s, late 70s, and they don't want to deal with the public. They don't want to advertise it. They just don't want any messing around. So, and I think it could be perfect for you. So this was and again, I think there's pictures of it on my Instagram page. It's a 1985 Porsche 924 in black.
Oh, there it is.
What was quite unusual about this was I believe a few people have said that the fact that it's black is unusual. The fact that it's a non-sunroof model was unusual. And it only had 3 owners prior to me. And the owner I bought it off had it 30 years. And one of the owners was actually, I think it was a company in London, I believe, that had it, an actual company, and somebody must have had it as a director's company car or whatever. And then somebody bought it and quickly sold it within sort of 18 months or something. And then it came to me. It came to the chap I bought it off, and he'd had it 30 years, and then it came to me, and yeah, it was just so unique, to be honest. It was just like a time warp, the history with it.
It seems like when you buy your cars, the thread here is you're pretty quick in deciding, aren't you? Like you're kind of not really looking, but you are looking, and then it just all falls into place. Is that how you see it?
I guess so. You're always looking, aren't you?
But yeah, no, you're always looking.
I think subconsciously you're always looking.
I think that's the thing, is that you don't tell people you're looking, but you're always looking.
Yeah.
But that's almost like the perfect buying situation, isn't it? An elderly couple that they don't want to advertise, and you get the first look, so there's no other competition. What are the wheels on that 924 though? Were they standard wheels?
Just standard wheels, yeah. It was a really standard car, even down to the point where it only had a single mirror on as well. And a lot of the early 911s only had single mirror as well. The actual mirror from Porsche, I believe, was an optional extra.
It looks really good in black, though, doesn't it? The shape of it.
Totally original.
You're right. I can't remember seeing many black ones. Even when I do look at them. I look at 924 turbos when I'm checking the ads for them, but you don't really see black ones because black wasn't that popular at that period, really, was it?
No, I suppose not. This is 85, and it was. I didn't realise that it was that unusual until I was at a car show one day, and the guy said, "Wow, black one! You don't see many of them." And again, you had a lot of golds and greens, and there was quite a lot of unusual colours. Again, I love the 70s and 80s Porsche colours. I just think they're fantastic.
What was the interior, Mark? What was the interior? Did it have a crazy interior or just a subtle interior?
No, fairly subtle. It was the Porsche cloth, where it says Porsche.
Oh, I like that. That's nice.
You saw that in 944s quite a bit as well, I think.
Yeah, was it black, just black and grey, or was it in a different colour?
Yeah, black bolsters and then sort of grey and black Porsche logos. Not logo, but Porsche word print, if you like.
Yeah, it's a subtle interior, but it's still a nice interior, very period, beautiful interior. And when you owned that, Well, tell the listeners, you've sold that car, haven't you? You don't own that car anymore.
I sold it in January last year to an enthusiast.
Why, Mark? That's the question. Why?
I wasn't using it, if I'm honest.
Oh, really?
And at the time, I didn't have any garage space, and it was very much a case of it was under a cover and that sort of thing. And I didn't. In some ways, I didn't want to sell it because it was quite an emotional transaction. Buying the car off the chap after 30 years, he was very attached to it, and but. In other ways, it was very much a case of I wasn't doing the best for the car, if you like. So I felt a bit guilty about that. And kind of sold it on, really.
When you bought it from the previous owner that owned it for 30 years, you said you'd look after it for him. Is that why you felt bad? And then you sold it after a few years?
Yeah, well, you kind of look at these things, I suppose, don't you, as a third car, and you think, well, if it's not for me, I can always sell it on, and I suppose profit's there in your mind sometimes and that sort of thing. But it was more than that, I mean, right down to, it had, in the history, it had lists of Porsche group centres that were around in the 80s that just weren't around anymore, right down to if you zoom right in on the car, on the original, it's got the original number plates on it. I get very sort of excited about things like this, unfortunately. But it had a private plate on the car.
Oh, okay.
The guy that had it 30 years had a private plate on it, but because he was an older guy, I thought to myself, oh God, just let him put those plates, the original plates, in his garage and keep them safe. And it had the original dealer plates on it, things like that. I mean, just It was lovely. Yeah, great car. But
so, were there any issues during the 3 years or so of ownership with the with that car, with the 924?
Really, it did let me down once. It had thrown a fan belt on the motorway in the worst possible place to break down, probably on the motorway. But no, apart from that, it was just general maintenance, to be honest. It had prior to me, it had paint at some point, but I think most of it was original paint as well. It was a really good order.
It was manual though, right? Or was it auto?
Yeah, no, manual. Yeah, that was good fun. Good fun.
It's a nice car. So far you've had the 1978 911 SC Targa. You've got your 3.2 Carrera, which is still in your garage in Cassis Red. And then you had the 924. Now, out of those three cars, and I know people are wanting me to ask this question, out of those three cars, which one, and just because you've only left with that one, but which one would you pick? Which one is the car that you think is the pick of the three?
The one I've got without question.
Without a question, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was really, if I'm honest with myself, why I sold the 924, because one, I wasn't using it, but I wasn't using it because I had a left or right choice on a cars and coffee morning, and I was always going in the 911, because I find you go into similar events. So if you go into similar events, it's kind of, you could have gone to what they call a retro meet with the 924, perhaps easier than you could with the 911. But it was very much a case of they're very, they're the same brand, aren't they? So I think I tend to find that, I'd always go in the 911. Ultimately, that's what I wanted.
And the three variants, reliability wise, would you say the one you have now is the most reliable, or they're pretty much all around the same sort of thing? As in, maintenance, etc. How you feel when you're in a car, you feel like it's not going to break down on you. Are they all about the same, or is one stand out as being a lot more reliable?
I think the current Cassis Red one is much more usable. Whether that's the gearbox or the engine, to me that it's just a more usable proposition. The 924 was, again, leaving them outside doesn't help, and that sort of thing. And you just, from a reliability point of view, I think the 3.2. I mean, I've been up to Scotland in a couple of years on the run, doing North Coast 500s and things like that with the 3.2, and it's bulletproof. Yeah, I'm touching a lot of wood here, Michael, when I'm saying this.
I know. I bet you are. Sorry, I'm asking the worst question. Okay, let's talk about something, the driving experience then, not the maintenance, the driving experience. And I think you've already answered this, so I'm probably asking a redundant question. The driving experience, is there a standout in each of them, or you still think the 3.2 is the pick?
Well, the 924 is good in the respect that you've got to drive the heels off it, because it was the base one as well. So it wasn't the S, and it wasn't the turbo. So you've got to drive the heels off it. So it's a good driving experience in the respect that you've got to be up and down the gears to get the best out of it. So I would say that's a really good B-road car.
Okay.
The 78, it's going back a number of years, but the 78, the SC was, I think it was all right. I'm not sure how well sorted it perhaps was. I was a lot younger, and you've not got the same resources to be able to perhaps maintain it just the same. The 3.2 is just amazing. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and again, a lot of people say it, that no air-cooled cars, but you've got to learn to drive those cars. You can't just... it's never bothered me to some extent, the offset pedals and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
No hydraulic clutches, no power steering. But you really have got to learn to drive them. I mean, as I say, we did North Coast 500 back in September with a few friends, and we were on they call it the Duke's Pass on the Friday morning, and it was absolutely belting it down with rain. It was like torrential, and this pass goes up quite steep and back and forth, climbing all the way up. And there was a few hairy times. I got new tyres on, especially for the trip, but you're always conscious of the fact, it's
it can be a bit
slow
twitchy,
in, fast out type thing. I lost the 78, I lost the SC on a roundabout once in the early days, and I'd been reading since I was probably 13 or 14 about these cars, and I think they used to call it the turbo one. They used to call the Widowmaker or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was for a whole different reason, I suppose. But it was very early in the morning, and I was going out to a car show, my brother, and we'd just gone round the roundabout, put a little bit of power on, nothing too much, and just span it completely on the roundabout. Fortunately, there was no traffic around. It's very early in the morning, but we'd probably hit some diesel or whatever. But it does make you learn, and it does make you cautious, and you kind of, they're very, I just think you've got to be respectful of it almost.
Yeah, good point.
In answer to your question, the 3.2 Carrera, when it's sorted, is a very usable car, I think.
Experience-wise, that's the best one. I didn't ask you the question, actually. Have you improved the suspension of your car, and have you upgraded the exhaust
I haven't done either.
That car?
Now, I'm a stickler for originality, and I take some stick off my mates for not changing the exhaust out, actually, because if you read some of the comments on that YouTube video again, there's a few comments from friends saying he needs to change the exhaust, but I haven't done.
Isn't there a really good Danks exhaust for the 3.2 Carrera? I thought Danks did a pretty good one, like original type, but a slightly better sound.
Yeah, and I've never looked into it, if I'm honest. I've always liked it totally original, so much so that, just going off track a bit, but I bought a radio for it, and I got really quite sort of anal about the radio because I'd sussed out that it was two options it could have come with, and they reckon it was the Blaupunkt SQR46 Toronto, to to be specific, and it had come in Porsche of that vintage. It had come in the 7 Series BMW, and it had come in the Rolls Royce. This particular radio.
The same, exactly the same.
Yeah, and if you look at it on eBay, they fetch $1,000 or whatever, and you're looking at an AM/FM radio with a tape deck on it. That's it,
right?
You know? So this was crazy. And a couple of summers ago, I got outbid at 500 quid for one, and I thought, I'm not doing this. And I just happened to be sat one day in my regular car waiting for my daughter, and I saw this guy on Facebook raving about, it's arrived. I thought, what's this he's talking about? And it's a Blaupunkt radio, exactly the same look as the period radio.
Yeah.
But what they've done is where the tape deck was, they've actually put a USB port in there.
Ah, is that got a little door that flaps down?
Yeah.
You know, I think you know what? Matt Farah from Smoking Tire, sorry to interrupt the story, but Matt Farah from Smoking Tire was at the Ferrari guy in the desert that's fixing up his 328 GTS. And it was delivered there, and he just bought one and he was showing it. Maybe it was the same brand. And he flipped it down and it had the USB port, and it looked, almost period correct, but it was modernized with with no tape deck. It must be the same one. It must be a similar one, I think.
And I was fortunate because when I looked into it, they were about £400 plus fitting. And the distributor were relatively local to me, the national distributor for the UK.
Fantastic.
They fitted it, and they've also fitted me a microphone so that I can use my car phone, because I have my own business. So sometimes in the summer, if the weather's good or whatever, and I've got a nice ride out to see a customer, I'll go in that, and I'm able to talk while I'm driving. So
great. So the question is, Mark, when did you fit the radio? How long ago?
Be coming up 2 years, maybe.
2 years. So you weren't tempted to get the Porsche OEM updated,
Yeah, the classic.
The classic one?
I did look at it. A few people had sort of said that, I think a lot of people have gone for it for the sat-nav.
Yes, but it's
quite small, I believe.
It's too small, though. You can't see it.
Yeah, and I think that was the only thing that mine hasn't. So it's DAB. I've got an antenna in the window. It's DAB, and it's also FM radio as well. And as I say, it's got the phone kit in it. And it's period. I wanted something that was,
Yeah, I think it's nice.
Bearing in mind, I was going to pay £100 more for something that was shabby and covered in dust out of someone's shed from the 80s.
Yeah.
And so I got a brand new unit.
And the Porsche part's so much more expensive as well.
I think it's more like 1,000 or 1,200 sterling.
It looks good. I'm looking at your picture, actually. I can see it. It looks good if that's in the current picture you put on.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, looks good. Yeah. Looks good.
So that's really the only mod other than it being original, to be honest.
So you're happy with the car? You're happy with it as it is? It's it's like that one you saw originally. It could even be the same one. So, it's a great story.
Yeah, sorry, to add a bit of weight to that story, what actually happened was my car was registered with Ian Anthony at Wilmslow.
Okay.
In Cheshire. And so that was really local to where we are. That's probably 30, 40 miles away, if that, where we are, where I actually originally saw that car. So you kind of wonder, I'm about the 10th owner on it, I think, but you kind of wonder if that was that car.
I think it is, Mark, don't you? I mean, the chances are with that color, that spec, that color, I mean, the chances are it is the same car, which is a great story. It's a great story.
It's fabulous. Yeah. It's good.
So, three Porsches, SC Targa. I'm going to get into this. I'll eventually get my train of thought going. 3.2 Carrera Coupe, 924. You've had 3. You say you never look. You say you're always looking. Is there something now that you are searching for, or are you done and you're just going to have the Carrera for now?
Oh no. I've come close a couple of times to swapping it for a modern one because I like the idea of a modern one, but I've never been able to do it, to be honest. And it'd have to be as well as, and then I'm not sure how feasible that is. Maybe one day. But I've had a
modern one as in a 991, 992, or a modern one as in a 996 or 997?
Probably more down the 997 route. There's probably 2 that really float my boat, actually, probably. But the 997 Targa, I think, was a great looking car. And I know it divides opinion, but I really like it. I think
it's not on everyone's list, that one. Why do you like that one? Tell me the reason why.
I think it came in some great colour schemes again. I'm a real tan interior lover. And I think it looks great with the tan. Like the biscuity tan leather, the darker tan. And if you look closely on the Targa from the side profile. It's got the chrome strip that comes down around the back window. And I just think it looks $1 million, that, to be fair.
It's weird. I remember seeing them in Sydney at the time. I remember when they came out, and I think one of my wife's clients had one. I think she had one, and I thought it was to me it was still a really nice looking 911. It looked fantastic. It didn't look like the 80s ones, of course. It was so much removed from the 80s ones, but it was still a nice looking 911. I don't know whether people get upset about it because of the name being called Targa and it doesn't have the traditional Targa roof.
Lift out.
Yeah, the Targa roof, or it's something else. I think it's just because it doesn't resemble the 80s Targas, I think, or the 70s Targas. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because the Targa came back in with the 993 and the 996 and the 997, all in the glass profile.
Yeah, it did.
Split behind the back
3
window.
generations. Yeah. So it must have been okay if Porsche kept it going for 3 generations.
Yeah, but then you wonder when they switched it on 991, 992, they've switched it back to traditional, haven't they? Which is an outstanding looking car, to be fair.
It's a beautiful car, which hold their value unbelievably well. It's crazy how much I know in Australian market, I think UK as well, they still hold their value, the Targas, don't they? They're not cheap.
No.
All right, so you're happy with that. You don't want to change. I don't think you should sell it. I think that's my opinion from seeing a car on Instagram and not in real life, but seeing it on Instagram. If it comes a time where you can get 2, I would keep it. I would keep that one and get a modern one. I think you'll regret selling it. It's just such a nice looking car, and it seems you've got it well sorted now as well. So it'd be very hard to part with it.
I think that's what it came down to in the end as well. People sort of saying, well, yeah, but if you sold it, you wouldn't get it back. Whereas if you bought a modern one and you swapped it for another modern one or whatever, they're relatively straightforward to, all right, you can go with specific colour specs and that sort of thing. Because the other modern one that really gets me is the 991 GTS. I just think they've done such a good job with that. I think that's a real special occasion car, because I think the 991's it's a real great car, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people would still be using those as commuter cars, whereas I think you could get in a 991 GTS and really enjoy that on a Sunday morning, because it's the attention to detail with the stitching on the seat belts and the dash and the Alcantara, and I just think they're really sort of special.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you with that one. That's probably, I have to say, and like I said, I don't hate PDK. The episode this week, we talk about PDK and manual. The previous episode of the podcast, we talk about PDK and manual a couple of weeks ago. But I really love Barry's car that's been on the owner stories. I think his GTS is fantastic. I really liked Castas's one. He had the 997 Carrera 4 GTS. He bought a really good one. The GTS is appealing, but I think when it comes to PDK, Mark, I think the only PDK, one of the few PDKs I would buy would be in the 991.1 GTS. I know people say get the manual, but I think in the GTS, with that little bit of extra bump in power, I still think they must tune that transmission slightly different on the GTS. I think that's a really good car, and I think they're going to go up in value a lot. I mean, there's so few on the market, and Nick, who's been on the very first owner story, is a friend of mine in the UK. He's looking for one. He's decided. I think he's going to get one instead of getting a touring. So I think it's on everyone's list, and I think that just shows you, like guys like us. The price is going to go up. It's going to be a point in time where we're going to say, we wish we would have bought one.
Yeah, they really are holding up as well. I mean, they're not too far away really from what they were new. Well, they are, but they're not. If you know what I mean, they've not dropped like a lot have they?
No. All right, so we're almost at the end. We're a little bit over an hour, but I thought we would go a bit over an hour today because you've got a few Porsches. You've had a good experience. I always like to ask the question if anyone's in. So you're in Manchester region. I didn't tell that to the listeners. You're in Manchester area, right, in the UK?
Yeah, just north of Manchester, an area called Saddleworth. So we sort of stepping out. We're sort of between Manchester and Yorkshire, really, right on the border almost.
So you go to all these Cars and Coffee. I guess you go on drives near where you live. If someone's in the region, what is a drive that you would recommend that they do? And you've also just said you've driven in Scotland, which is on one of my lists to definitely go and drive in Scotland.
We're starting with the Scotland one. I mean, it was great. Absolutely great. We didn't do all of the North Coast 500. We spent about 3-4 days doing it, but what we did do was just brilliant. Yeah, the scenery and just couldn't recommend it enough. I remember we did about 25 miles down a single track road.
Oh, really?
With passing places in different areas and that sort of thing. But we did it on walkie-talkies. It was great. It was,
so how many days?
Cars.
How many days would you allocate for a trip like that in Scotland? 5 days? A week?
Yeah, or even a week. Yeah, 7 days, something like that. You could do it all probably in 7 days and enjoy it. Some good videos on YouTube as well. I think Sam Moores did one in his old air-cooled.
I think I saw that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's on the list for sure. And where you live, there's some great roads, great back roads that you can take the car on that are okay. They're not too bumpy.
Yeah, on the Pennines and that sort of thing. I tend to be more of a sort of cars and coffee sort of destination. Get up early, young family and whatever. So get up early on a Sunday morning and out for a blast, and then turn up at a cars and coffee and home by lunchtime sort of thing. But there's some good stuff out onto the Pennines and Ribble Valley, and that's good.
Fantastic. All right. Anything else you want to share with the listeners before we go, Mark?
No, I think, like I say, I just really enjoy your show, and I've been enjoying the banter between you and Steve, and listening to the owners and their different points of view. And I just thought mine might be interesting to a few different people with some of the older cars, and
Oh, it is. Thanks once again. Thank you so much for coming on. It's great, and I know it's afternoon in the UK. There, I'm in Bahrain, so it's early evening. So thanks for taking some time out and chat. But I thought you had a great story because I looked through your Instagram and I saw the cars and I thought, Mark's got a great story to tell, and it is a great story. And it's good that, you saw a car and you think that the car you have is that car. You know what I mean? It's coincidence. I don't know. Everything sort of it happens for a reason, doesn't it?
Sure. It'd be nice to know, but at the end of the day, it's
keep searching.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
All right. That's great. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for being on Owner Stories. For all the listeners, this is Owner Stories number 21. So that was Mark from Manchester. We'll call it Manchester. This is with his, great story of owning 3 Porsches, a 911 78 SC Targa, a 1987 911 3.2 Carrera G50, the gearbox, the choice, and a 924, very rare black standard, no sunroof, which, is all on his Instagram. So check out Mark's Instagram. It's in the link of this podcast. And that's about it. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and bye for now.